Have you ever looked at someone living a life that seems much harder than yours and yet wondered why they smile more easily than you do? Have you ever caught yourself thinking that the world is unfair, that others are blocking your path, and then quietly asked whether it is really the world that is narrow or your own heart that has become too small to walk through life with ease? Welcome back to the channel, my friend. Today we are going to talk about something that sounds simple yet quietly decides almost everything in your life, from the people you attract to the opportunities you meet to the way you age. It is not your grades, not your face, not your bank account. It is something you cannot see in the mirror, but everyone can feel the size of your heart. There is an old saying that if your heart is as wide as the sky, your road will be as wide as the world. If your heart is as narrow as the neck of a bottle, then even if you stand in an open field, you will feel trapped. The original article that inspires this script spoke about heart capacity and destiny, about how a generous heart tends to walk into open spaces, while a resentful heart keeps hitting invisible walls. In this long video-style storytelling script, I want to take that idea and bring it right into your daily life, into your family arguments, work frustrations, friendships, and private inner storms, so that you can see with your own eyes how your inner capacity is silently shaping the pattern of your fate. Let me start with a story of two classmates who seemed to live on the same planet but actually walked through completely different worlds. Their names were Eric and Daniel. They grew up in the same small city, went to the same school, sat in the same classroom. Both came from ordinary families. Neither was especially rich or especially poor. If you looked at their report cards, they were even similar in academic results. Yet, from high school onward, their lives began to spread apart like two paths in a forest. Eric was known as the one with a big heart. He was not naive, but he rarely held grudges. When the teacher scolded the whole class because of one student, everyone walked out grumbling about injustice. Eric shrugged and said that the teacher probably had a bad morning and that they could all just do a little better next time. When a classmate borrowed money and forgot to return it on time, some others would go around complaining that this person was unreliable. Eric would first go and gently remind them, and if they apologized, he would accept it and move on instead of writing their name in an inner blacklist forever. He did not let himself be used, but he also did not stab people in his mind again and again for one mistake. He had a kind of inner elasticity. Daniel was different. He had a sharp mind and a sharp memory and an even sharper sense of being wronged. If someone once made a joke that embarrassed him, he could recall it in vivid detail years later. When the teacher praised another student, he felt it as an insult to himself. When his friends went out without inviting him, he would replay the scene in his head for days, building a whole story about how they were betraying him. When something went wrong, he always knew exactly whose fault it was and very rarely considered his own part. Their destinies began to show their outlines during a group project in college. A professor assigned a large research project to a team of students. Both Eric and Daniel were on the same team. The work required long hours in the library, many nights of data analysis, and endless adjustments. Halfway through, one member of the team got sick and could not contribute as much as planned. Another member made a mistake that cost them several days of work. Daniel exploded. He sent a long angry message in the group chat saying that others were incompetent and lazy, that he was tired of carrying them, that if the project failed it would be their fault, not his. He began to do his part while secretly hoping others would stumble so that he could be proven right. Eric felt frustrated too. He was not a saint, But after the first wave of annoyance, he chose a different route. He checked in on the sick classmate instead of only blaming him. He reviewed the mistaken work and asked what could be salvaged rather than throwing it all away. He stayed in communication with the professor, explaining the situation honestly and asking for advice. In the end, the project did not turn out perfect, but it passed with a decent grade. The professor later called Eric to the office and said that he had noticed the way Eric handled conflicts and that this kind of broad-mindedness was more valuable than any single success. When internship opportunities came up, the professor thought of him first. Daniel's intelligence was not ignored, but his reputation for being difficult to work with followed him like a shadow. Years later, Eric found himself in a company where people trusted him as a coordinator and later as a leader. He was not the most brilliant in technical skills, but he could hold different personalities in one room and still move things forward. Teams wanted him. Clients felt safe with him. When problems arose, he looked first for solutions rather than for enemies. The road under his feet seemed to open wider and wider. Daniel bounced between jobs. In each place, he eventually found new reasons to feel betrayed and under stake. His heart was like a cage where every resentful memory was a bar. Even when chances came, he often could not see them, or he refused them because of old grudges. Both met difficulties in life. Both had setbacks. The difference was not outer luck but inner space. From the outside, people might say that Eric was more lucky and Daniel less so. From the inside, the truth was that Eric's large heart allowed luck to enter and stay, while Daniel's narrow heart pushed blessings away again and again. This is what it means when people say that the size of your heart decides the size of your destiny pattern. What exactly is a big heart, though? People often confuse it with weakness, with blindly forgiving everything, with never standing up for yourself. That is not what we are talking about. A big heart is not a doormat. It is more like a wide river. It can receive muddy water without becoming permanently polluted because it keeps flowing and renewing itself. To understand this more clearly, let us look at some very common situations where heart capacity shows itself. Imagine you are driving or sitting on public transport. Someone cuts in front of you or shoves past you without saying sorry. A narrow heart reacts instantly with fire. Many insulting phrases rise to the tongue. The whole day becomes colored by that moment. You tell the story to 3 different people, each time making it sound more outrageous. The person is long gone, but they are still dragging your mind around like a dog on a leash. A larger heart may still feel a flash of irritation. You are human, but it has room to pause and choose a different story. It might think that perhaps this person is rushing to a hospital or simply lost in their own worries. It does not excuse bad behavior, but it does not let one moment poison the whole day. You release it and move on. The outside event is the same. The inner capacity makes the difference between 1 minute of discomfort and 12 hours of mental torture. Or think of this situation. You organize a gathering, a project, or a family event. You put in a lot of effort. At the end, you feel that someone did not appreciate you enough or did not help as much as you expected. A narrow heart begins to build silent accounts. You tell yourself that you will not help them next time. You label them as selfish and silently withdraw your warmth. A larger heart can still notice disappointment but is willing to see the whole picture. Maybe that person was dealing with something you did not see. Maybe they are simply not good at expressing gratitude. You may still set boundaries in the future, but you do not burn the entire bridge in your mind. You can still greet them with basic kindness. Again, you have saved yourself from shrinking into a corner of bitterness. A big heart is not about forcing yourself to be nice when you feel violated. True wisdom includes boundaries. It is about not letting your mind become so tight that there is no space for understanding, patience, or forgiveness. From the view of karma, every seed you plant in the field of your heart will grow into the shape of your future. If you repeatedly plant seeds of jealousy, suspicion, and comparison, your inner world will always be loud with the sound of others' footsteps, always watching who is ahead, who is behind, who is threatening your fragile sense of worth. Even when you receive something good, you fear that someone will take it away. You defend, hoard, fight, and slowly exhaust yourself. If you plant seeds of appreciation, generosity, and empathy, your inner world will more often be filled with gratitude and curiosity. You can genuinely feel happy when others do well, because their success does not feel like your failure. You also naturally become more attractive to others, not in a cosmetic way but in a vibrational way. People enjoy being around someone who is not constantly comparing and calculating. Opportunities often travel through relationships, and relationships grow where they feel safe. Let me tell you about a small shop owner named Grace who lived in a crowded street filled with competition. Her store sold simple things: snacks, drinks, daily supplies. 2 doors down, there was another shop selling almost the same items. Many people would say that this is a recipe for conflict and bitterness. The owner of the other shop, Mr. Lee, certainly thought so. He counted every customer who entered her store. When he saw someone walk past his door to buy from her, he would feel a stab of pain. Inside, he would think that she was stealing his business, even though she had done nothing wrong. He began to play petty games. If her prices were high, he undercut them by a small amount. If she introduced a new product, he rushed to stock it too. He refused to greet her. In his mind, the narrow street was not big enough for two. Grace took a different path. She also noticed the competition. She also had days when business was slow and fear crept in. But instead of seeing Mr. Lee as an enemy, she chose to see him as part of a shared ecosystem. She kept her own standards high, treated customers warmly, and when Mr. Lee had to close the shop for a day due to illness, she even helped to take delivery of his goods and kept them for him. When he asked her why, she simply said that the street needed both shops and that people could choose where to go, and that if one day she needed help, she hoped neighbors would do the same. In the short term, some might say that she was foolish, that she was helping her rival. In the long run, something interesting happened. The residents of the area began to notice the difference between the two owners. One seemed to be constantly frowning, constantly counting. The other seemed open, willing to share information, willing to hold umbrellas over customers during sudden rain. People like to support those who make them feel welcome. Slowly, more regular customers gathered in Grace's shop. Some even said to her face that they preferred to buy from her because they knew she had a good heart. Over time, she did not just sell things. She became someone locals came to talk to about their troubles for a few minutes between errands. When new opportunities came, like adding a delivery service or cooperating with nearby offices, she was the first to be recommended. Her heart had made her road wide. This does not mean that every generous person will become rich, or that every narrow-minded person will become poor. Life is more complex than that. But it does mean that your pattern of thinking and feeling strongly influences the kind of life you can even imagine and the kind of opportunities you allow yourself to see and seize. A heart that is always wrapped in resentment struggles to recognize blessings even when they stand at the door. A heart that is trained in gratitude and understanding can often turn even difficulty into a source of growth. From the perspective of ancient wisdom, your heart is like a container for destiny. If that container is small, only a limited amount of joy, responsibility, love, and success can stay there before it begins to overflow in the form of stress and self-sabotage. If the container is wide, life can pour more into it without causing destruction. Think of a person who suddenly wins a large amount of money without having grown a wider heart first. Stories like that often end badly. Without inner capacity, outer fortune becomes a poison. Now, you might be wondering how to actually make your heart bigger. It is a beautiful phrase, but what does it look like in concrete daily practice? Let us approach it through a very real and uncomfortable example that many people carry: the pain of family conflict. Imagine you grew up with a parent who was harsh, critical, or emotionally absent. Part of you craves their approval even as an adult. Another part of you carries deep anger. You might find that each time you visit home, old patterns replay. A single comment from your parent can instantly make you feel like a child again. Your chest tightens, your voice becomes sharp, your mind fills with old scenes. You leave frustrated, swearing that next time you will not be triggered, only to repeat the cycle again. A narrow heart in this situation might cling to a simple narrative. It might say that your parent is just a bad person, that everything is their fault, that you are the innocent victim. This story can feel righteous, yet it also keeps you stuck. As long as you see them as a monster and yourself as a powerless child, there is little room for any new way of relating. A larger heart does not deny the pain. It does not pretend that what happened was fine, but it is willing to see more layers. It might begin to ask what shaped your parent, what kind of childhood they had, what wounds they carried into adulthood. It might notice that behind their criticism there is fear that you will suffer, fail, be judged, even if they express it in clumsy and hurtful ways. Seeing these layers does not magically heal the relationship, but it expands the container. Your parent is no longer only the villain in a story. They are a complex, wounded, imperfect human being like you. From that slightly wider space, you may be able to choose different actions. Perhaps you prepare yourself before each visit with some moments of breathing and the reminder that you are no longer a powerless child. Perhaps you decide which topics you will not discuss because they always end in fights, and you accept that this boundary is a form of self-respect. Perhaps you choose to express your feelings in calm moments instead of during explosions. You may never receive the apology or warmth you long for. That is a sorrow you might always carry, but your heart can still grow through how you hold that sorrow. When your heart grows in this way, your destiny with that parent begins to change. You are no longer bound to the same script of attack and defense. You step into a new role, not by changing them, but by changing the capacity of your own mind. This is also the way to break cycles of karma. If you only respond from old wounds, you tend to create new wounds for the next generation. A hurt child often grows into a parent who, without awareness, hurts their own children in similar ways. When you use your pain as material for growth, when you widen your heart to include both your suffering and your parents' suffering, you are planting different seeds. Your children, if you have them, will likely experience a different kind of presence from you. In that way, the road is not just widening for you but also for those who walk behind you. Another key place where heart capacity shows is in how you handle other people's success. Mature adults sometimes act like small children when faced with someone doing better than themselves. Imagine you are working hard at your job, trying your best. Then a colleague arrives, and within a year they receive a promotion or recognition that you have been hoping for. A narrow heart feels attacked by this. It begins to compare, to question their worth, to suspect favoritism. It may even look for ways to pull them down, to highlight their mistakes, to rejoice secretly when they stumble. You may say that you are only being realistic, but deep down you know that there is a sour energy in this. A bigger heart can still feel a sting of envy. We are human, but it refuses to feed it. Instead, it might ask what can be learned. Perhaps this colleague has a skill you can study, a way of communicating that you can adopt. Perhaps, if you befriend them, they can even open doors for you later. Even if you do none of that, you can at least allow their success to coexist with your own journey instead of turning it into a threat. A generous heart knows that another person's light does not reduce your chance to shine. The sky is big enough for many stars. This attitude is not just nice sounding. It has real effects. People who feel your goodwill when they succeed are more likely to remember you when they have chances to share. People who sense your quiet hostility will rarely invite you into their circle of growth. Your heart can be either a magnet or a repellent. There is a deep reason why spiritual teachings across cultures place so much emphasis not only on what you do but on the spirit in which you do it. Compassion, patience, forgiveness, and humility are not just moral decorations. They are ways of widening the container of your life. Without them, success can damage you because you are not large enough inside to hold it without becoming arrogant or terrified of losing it. With them, even failure can enrich you because you know how to extract lessons and keep your dignity. Let us look at aging through this lens. You may have met older people who become more and more bitter as the years go by. Their hearts shrink around their regrets and resentments. Their world becomes smaller each year, not because their city has changed, but because their capacity to welcome life has dried up. They complain about the government, about young people, about relatives, about everything. Conversations with them leave you exhausted. You may also have met older people whose eyes are clear and kind, whose laughter is easy. They have seen plenty of pain. They carry memories of loss and disappointment. Yet they somehow have space in their hearts for new experiences, new friendships, even new ideas. They do not insist that everything must be like the old days. They can sit on a park bench and simply enjoy the sound of children playing without needing to control the scene. This difference is often the accumulated result of many daily choices of heart. A person who lets go a little each day, who forgives a little, who chooses understanding over blame again and again, will likely arrive at old age with a softer, wider heart. A person who tightens a little each day, who keeps long lists of offenses, who insists that the world is always wrong and they are always right, will likely arrive at old age with a heart that feels like a dried fruit, all wrinkles and no juice. The outer wrinkles are inevitable for all of us. The inner dryness is not. So how can you begin? In simple ways, to grow a wider heart right where you are. With the life you currently have, one very practical way is to pay attention to the stories you tell yourself each time you feel hurt. When someone's behavior disappoints you, your mind quickly writes a story about why. If that story always makes them a villain and you a pure victim, your heart becomes more and more cramped. Try to leave a few blank spaces in that story. Instead of saying to yourself that they did it because they do not care, you might say that you do not yet know everything. You can still protect yourself, still decide what distance you need, but you leave a little room for the possibility that things are more complicated. That small room is the start of a larger heart. Another way is to consciously practice appreciation. Each day, your mind can either count what is missing or what is already present. The habit of gratitude does not deny real problems. It simply refuses to let them occupy the whole screen. When you notice the warm drink in your hand, the roof above your head, the message from a friend, the stranger who held the door, the teacher who once encouraged you, you are expanding your focus. Your heart becomes less obsessed with what you lack and more aware of what you already have. That awareness makes you more generous because you no longer feel like a beggar at the gate of life. You begin to see yourself as someone who has something to share, even if it is as simple as a smile or a listening ear. Generosity itself widens the heart. There is also the path of stillness. Modern life fills your head with noise, messages, headlines, notifications, endless opinions. If you never taste quiet, your heart remains jittery and small. You react instead of responding, spending even a few minutes each day in silence, watching your breath, noticing your thoughts and letting them pass without chasing them is like gently opening a clenched fist. In that silence, you start to see that many insults you cling to are echoes that you have replayed 1,000 times. Many fears are based on images, not on what is happening right now. Seeing this gives you the chance to release some of them. From a spiritual perspective, when you make space inside, you also make room for higher qualities to enter. Wisdom, compassion, and courage are like guests who will not come into a crowded, messy room. When you clear a little space in your heart, they can sit down. Finally, there is the simplest and hardest way of all changing the way you talk to yourself. If your inner voice is always critical, narrow, and unforgiving, your heart will mirror that attitude toward others. You cannot easily be generous to others while being cruel to your own mind. Practicing a kinder inner tone does not mean letting yourself off the hook for everything. It means speaking to yourself as a wise elder might speak to a younger person. Honest, but warm. Direct, but not vicious. When you take a step in the right direction, acknowledge it. When you fall back into old habits, guide yourself firmly but without contempt. As your inner atmosphere softens, your outer interactions tend to soften too. Your heart gradually learns that it is safe to open. Now, I want to turn this reflection back to you. Think of a recent situation where you felt your heart shrinking. Maybe it was a small insult, a disappointment in love, a difficult family conversation, a work conflict. Ask yourself what story you told about it and how that story affected your inner space. Did you make the entire event about yourself, interpreting every detail as proof that you are not valued? Did you decide that because of this one event, nothing will ever change? Did you silently vow to close your heart a little more so that you would not be hurt again? Those reactions are deeply understandable. Many of us learned them very young. But also ask yourself whether that way of holding the event brought you more peace or more tightness. If it brought tightness, then this is your invitation to experiment with a different way, not by forcing yourself to feel what you do not feel, but by gently widening the frame. What would this same situation look like if you viewed it from a hilltop instead of from the bottom of a well? What would you say to a friend if they were in the same situation? Can you offer yourself that same slightly larger view? It will not instantly remove pain, but it may prevent pain from turning into lifelong bitterness. As you work with one situation after another in this way, you will notice something over months and years. Your road feels different. The people you meet change. The way you respond to opportunities and setbacks changes. Things that used to break you now bend you but do not destroy you. You begin to understand from your own experience that destiny is not just a mysterious force deciding everything from outside. It is also the accumulated direction of countless inner choices. You cannot control every event, but you can cultivate a heart that meets events with increasing spaciousness. That is one of the most powerful ways to change your fate without changing your address, your job, or your family name. As we come to the end of this long sharing, I want to speak with you in the tone of a friend sitting across the table, perhaps with a simple drink between us. No matter what you have gone through, and no matter how small your heart feels right now, it is not fixed forever. There were times when you were more open, when you were younger and laughed more easily, when you trusted more. Life may have wrapped layers of armor around that softness. You might tell yourself that you have to be this hard to survive. But deep down, there is a part of you that still longs to breathe more freely, to love without being terrified, to forgive without feeling that you are losing. That part of you is very wise. Growing a bigger heart is not about making yourself vulnerable to constant abuse. It is about discovering a strength that is not brittle, a strength that knows when to step back and when to lean forward, when to say no and when to say yes, when to let go and when to hold on. It is about becoming someone whose presence is a blessing to others, not just someone who chases blessings for themselves. And here is the beautiful paradox. The more you become such a person, the more life tends to place blessings in your path because you have become a trustworthy carrier of them. If this script has resonated with you, if somewhere between the stories of Eric and Daniel, of the shop owners, of the families and elders, you recognized a part of your own journey, I invite you to share a little of that in the comments. You can write about a moment when your heart felt small and what it did to your life, or about a moment when you chose to act with a wider heart and how that changed things. Sometimes even a small story from a stranger can be the spark that helps someone else loosen their own tight chest. If you would like to walk further with us on this path of exploring destiny, karma, inner growth, and everyday wisdom, remember to subscribe, to like, and 2 comments so the conversation can continue. If it is within your ability and you feel moved to support the channel more deeply, you can also consider joining as a member to help sustain these long, carefully crafted sharing-s. No matter what, as you close this video and go back into your life, perhaps into the same rooms and routines as yesterday, carry this one sentence with you. The world in front of you is often as wide or as narrow as the world inside your heart. Whenever you feel trapped, before blaming the road, gently ask whether there is a little more space you can open within. Step by step, breath by breath, choice by choice, may your heart become wide enough to hold both your own pain and the pain of others, and wide enough also to hold joy, gratitude, and courage. When your heart becomes that wide, you will discover that even if your feet are standing in a small place, your life has already begun to walk a very wide road. There comes a time when you realize you want something that belongs just to you, something that brings comfort and keeps you connected to your inner world. Wall-crafted bracelet does exactly that. Quietly, softly, and consistently. If you felt drawn to any bracelet in this video, you'll find the purchase link in the video description, and many more auctions in the channel's storefront. Because sometimes the smallest item can bring the biggest sense of peace.